NCAA President Charlie Baker was called before the Senate because the NCAA has multiple lawsuits being filed against it for biological men playing women's sports. First, Senator Josh Hawley rips into Baker for not protecting women, and then Senator John Kennedy both effectively and hilariously destroys Baker and his decision-making in the clips that I'm about to show you. Check this out.
Have guidelines that instruct them what the best practices are, and your guidelines say that biological men can go in and use the women's locker rooms if they want to. What the women want has nothing to do with it. They're not mentioned in here at all. Correct? Correct. It's right here. You just reaffirmed them in May of this year. I've got them. I'm reading them.
No,
I've got them off your website.
I believe our guidelines give people optionality with respect to how they choose to use their facilities. And many,
what does that mean? Optionality. What it says is transgender student athletes will be able to use the locker room, shower, and toilet in accordance with their gender identity. That means men will be able to use the women's locker rooms. And as Riley Gaines and others have testified before this committee, that means if a man, a biological man, wants to use their locker room, they just have to accept it. Or else the women have to go somewhere else. They've got to go find an alternative. Why is that fair?
We told the local folks who've hosted our tournaments they need to create accommodations for the people who are playing.
You know, so it's the feds on the one hand, it's the locals on the other hand. The only person who doesn't seem to bear any responsibility in this is you and the NCAA, who are the governing body. And your testimony here today is you're not even subject to Title IX. Mr. Baker, I can't tell you how disappointed this makes me, but not just disappointed, frankly, infuriated for the student athletes who are suffering because of your policies, and you won't even defend them. You won't even take responsibility. It's outrageous. It's totally outrageous.
So Hawley talks here about the biological men in a women's locker room issue. I have 2 daughters, and I played Division I collegiate athletics. Quite frankly, hell no to a biological man in a girl's locker room. No. Where is the common sense that our girls should not be subject to something like this? Our girls should also not be subject to getting hurt or losing to biological men who are obviously physically superior to them on the playing field. And this is what Kennedy destroys Baker over right here, and frankly, completely exposes him as a hypocrite. The last line of this is classic John Kennedy. Watch this.
A transgender woman is a biological male. Is that correct?
Yes.
And a biological male is always going to have a physical and a physiological advantage competing in a collegiate sport against a biological female. Isn't that true?
There's not a lot of research on it, but it's certainly debatable.
You think it's debatable?
I think it's debatable.
You don't think? Think that a biological male has an advantage every time competing against a biological female? Is that your testimony?
No, I think defined the way you defined it, yes, I would agree with you.
So you agree with me?
Yes.
Okay. So why does the NCAA? Why do your job is to promote fairness in collegiate sports. Why do you support allowing transgender women who are biological males to compete against non-transgender biological females?
Over the course of the past 2 years, 5 federal court cases involving this question, let me finish. 5 federal judges have all sided with participation as the standard. This is a very...
So you're saying you don't have a choice?
I'm saying that under the current dynamic, there is not clarity on this issue legally.
Well, why don't you exhibit leadership and demonstrate leadership and provide clarity? If you agree with me,
well, first of all,
that the purpose of the NCAA is to promote fair competition, and if you agree with me that in every single instance, a biological male is going to have an unfair advantage over a biological female, then why don't you just say, look, in America you can be whomever you want to be, but in terms of fair competition in a collegiate sport, transgender women who are biological males are not going to be allowed to compete against non-transgender women who are biological female. Boom, done. Why don't you go to Amazon and buy a spine online and take a stand?
Go to Amazon, buy a spine, and take a stand. How can we take someone seriously who says it's debatable that biological men have an advantage over biological women? There's not a lot of research on it? Are you kidding me? How about a lifetime of objective reality? How is a person who doesn't know this in charge of collegiate athletics? How can you not see from a common sense perspective that this ruins women's sports?